earth and water. But you'll find plenty of both down there.
No man, Persian or Greek, no man threatens a messenger.
You bring the crowns and heads of conquered kings to my city steps. You insult my queen. You threaten my people with slavery and death. Oh, I've chosen my words carefully, Persian. Perhaps you should have done the same.
This is blasphemy. This is madness.
Madness. This is
Meta!
Hey everybody, welcome to Meta Episode 6. I hope you enjoyed that intro. Simpatico is the absolute best. He is so funny, I love that. This week, we have Idra, Catz, and Theognis. First off, Theognis, you badass killer, killing nerds left and right in WCS. How are you doing?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good. It's been a while since I've been on here, so happy to be here. I had a little celebratory beer, so I'm a little tipsy right now.
No, after one celebratory beer.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm doing good.
Nice, nice. You just beat State this morning, right?
Yeah. It's like 11 p.m. right now.
You were, well, this morning for me, which is what really matters. And you play against Sen next?
Yeah, I play in Sen like in a day or two, so it's coming up pretty fast.
How do you feel about that one?
I don't know. I actually haven't seen him play in HOTS. I actually used to kind of practice a few games with him in Wings of Liberty, so I kind of knew how I matched up back then, but I'm not exactly sure how he is right now.
All right, and Catz, how are you doing, buddy? You look really sharp tonight.
Thank you.
I really like that shirt with the green headset. I think you are the only person that can pull this off.
I think so too. But yeah, I'm pretty happy. Theo won and Puck won today, so we're all happy about that.
That's right, and the fact that Puck won, it's Puck versus Suppy in that finals, which means we'll have at least one American in the Premier League of the North America. Isn't that sick?
Yep. That is sick. What, Greg?
Idra? Huh?
No, he said something.
Oh no, I was just emphasizing in the American Premier League.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's going to be at least one in there.
Isn't Puck Canadian?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, one American then.
Blasphemy. What are you up to, Idra?
Everything's calmed down a lot, actually. I've pretty much just been streaming for the last week, so nice and calm and relaxed.
That's good.
Watching lots of Starcraft. Way too much Starcraft to watch.
There's actually way too much Starcraft to watch.
Yeah, I was looking through the show notes when you sent me, and I was like, even if I didn't have to play or do anything else at all, I wouldn't watch all of this.
You couldn't. You actually can. There's more. If you spent every waking hour, there's enough premium content to fill it all. Every waking hour, which I basically do, but like I still can't quite do it. So I don't know. It's pretty painful. So let's start off this discussion. A great thing was announced. They're testing something for balance for Protoss, and that is a bunch of head shaking. But Listen, Greg, let's start off with you because you and I were talking earlier, and you were telling me that you thought that Protoss needed a buff. Is this the right buff?
When did I say that? I don't recall that at all.
Void Ray buff?
Yeah, Void Ray. If they want to fix something, it's obviously it should
Well,
be
we need the speed upgrade back for the Void Ray, but we'll talk about that later because.
God, I forgot that even existed. Holy shit!
Yeah, do you remember that?
Now?
That would
Void
be
Ray
Snipe a hatch and run away?
You just like run in, kill a hatchery, run away. Oh my god, that would be so great. You could probably like kite everything too, couldn't you? I'd be like kiting Marines and stuff.
Yeah,
just
you don't need to maintain the beam anymore, so that doesn't even matter. You just press a little button and you're. Yeah.
It's a great idea. But let's talk about the Warp Prism because I'm actually giddy over this. I hope that this goes through, man. This would be so fun. What do you guys think?
I can't imagine it actually goes through. Like they tried some ridiculous stuff before, like the Oracle changed and whatever else, and it didn't go through. I don't see this happening.
Why?
Because it'd be way too good. Like they're already very powerful, and to add that much like harassment mobility early on, I don't know. It's just because the big thing is that Protoss doesn't have much mobility early on, but they're very powerful if they can like choose their engagement. So if they can pull you out of position with that speed prism right away, and then go up the front with like an immortal all in, or just they have the immediate reinforcements. It's just so powerful. I can't imagine. And it's not like Protoss is particularly struggling early game. I don't think.
Catz, what do you think about this subject? Because I definitely got some opinions being a Protoss player.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I mean, when they first buffed the Warp Prism, it seemed really powerful, and every Protoss was using it a lot, and then they kind of stopped using it too much, but I think it has a place in the game. I think it's used a lot right now, so I don't know if that's what they need. I would like to see it in play. Like there's factors also that they're not like considering right away. Like for example, hallucinated Warp Prisms would become so much more common and so much more scary as well.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not sure. I guess we'd have to see it. But like Greg said, there have been changes that are seem kind of ridiculous, and then they don't go through. I think they were trying to do something like Zerg get Burrow at like 50 minerals, 50 gas. That would have been awesome. Like I was already like spotting like those, the sickest fucking shit ever. But yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I'm just really curious. I'm just really curious as to why this is the change Blizzard thinks they need to do. Because I think the biggest problem with Protoss is that it tends to go to like death ball scenarios late game, whether it's good or bad for Protoss. Just their army clumps up, and you have this one super strong ball, and it's whether or not you can avoid it. And the Warp Prism change isn't going to do anything because by that point you already have speed prisms anyway. So it's not going to change that. It's not going to convince Protoss to somehow split up that death ball army because they already have that option, and they don't because it's less efficient.
Yeah, no, well, maybe in the end game, but in early game right now, Protoss, what options are there really? Because I feel like, and I'm talking specifically PvZ right now, like a new little timing comes out, it works for somewhere between 3 days and 3 weeks, and then Zerg has it completely figured out, and then it's back to the drawing board. And as far as actually being active on the map early on, it's like, well, you can send out an early up to 3 units and a mothership core, but you're always going to kill about exactly the same amount. And you can make Phoenixes, but those are always going to kill the exact same amount of Zerg stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, they kill so much and give so much map control and whatnot that the 5 Phoenix opening, I think, if anything, is the go-to right now. That's the most common opening I see. And so,
do you think that making the Warp Prism faster would make that replace the Phoenix opening? Because you think the Phoenix opening is already so good. Is the Robotech, getting the Robotech that early, and then also leaving yourself a little bit more open to mutas, is that actually going to happen? Or are you pulling fire alarms where you shouldn't?
Actually, now that you say that, I don't know if it would actually change anything at all, because I do think the Phoenix opening would still be the more efficient, just because the threat of mass mutas is so big.
Yeah.
But if you do get to open up with the Robo right away, you might get to Immortals and Colossus fast enough to do a timing before the mutas.
Yeah. And that's, I think, adding to Greg's point earlier, like he was saying that the Protoss late game is not really going to change much, right? And I agree with that. Like, I think what's going to get more powerful is all-ins and cheesy play, like or just gimmicky stuff. like what Puck does that you mentioned before the show, the Colossus drop kind of thing, or just like loading a couple sentries and going with the Warp Prism to block a ramp and then go and warp on the other side. I think it's just gonna make Protoss all-ins and that sort of thing a lot stronger.
Well, I guess as Zerg players, it makes sense that you guys would jump immediately to the all-ins, but as the first thing I thought of when I saw this was Seed's old build, where you'd make 4 quick Stalkers and bring an Observer and Warp Prism and just kill creep tumors and like pick off drones and stuff. And I think that if Zergs get to, figure out how to deal with the all-ins, that'll come, because right now Warp Prisms aren't really used in many all-ins against Zerg as like something that you need speed for. Normally it's just with the army, and the speed isn't going to really make that much of a difference other than it joins your army a little bit faster across the map. But if it does the actual harassment things, which is what I'm personally thinking about it, because it's like, well, as I said, all-ins have like a shelf life against Zerg before they figure it out, and they basically rotate out. So if it goes into that, and now I can choose, do I open Phoenixes to harass, or do I open Stalkers and a Warp Prism to harass? That would make the matchup, in my opinion, and especially as a Protoss player, more fun to play and to watch.
Like you said, it leaves you much more open to Muta, and Muta is such a common go-to. Basically, anyone who doesn't want to play Swarmhost Turtle, or if it's a bad map for it, they kind of want to go towards Mass Muta unless they can hit Lair Tech ground timing. And because of the vulnerability to Muta, if you don't open up with that Stargate, because it's not like it opens up, if you open up Robo, it's not like it opens up Templar Tech or anything like that. And I think that would just like actually encourage all-ins even more, because it gives you the opportunity to do the Immortal or the Colossus all-in before the Muta Tech comes out. Whereas with the Stargate play, that seems to be the more reliable option still. So I feel like if people want to cheese, then they're going to open up with Warp Prism harassment to set it up. But if they want to play a macro game, then I think that the Phoenix are still the more reliable go-to opening, because they still give you that map control and the vision and harassment. Not the same kind of harassment, because you can't take out creep, but they're a little bit better at Overlord harassment, queens, drones still. And then they also set you up to potentially defend mutas and all that. So maybe not. Maybe it'll be more effective than we think. And it does give you scouting information, so maybe you can switch into anti-muta from that point. But I really feel like it's going to be the cheesy opening option. And I don't think there's any reason to make Protoss more reliant on 2-base all-ins. If anything, we should be giving them a better way to take a 3rd base quickly, but then a less stupid late game.
Well, what would you say that is?
I honestly don't know. I think everything goes back to force field, and I think they're so broken on that it's never going to be fixed. So
Protoss is by far, I would say, the hardest race to balance because of the force field. Because if you change anything about force field, Protoss is probably just going to die. Everything. Yeah, like every stat on every unit will have to be tweaked, and it would take forever, and it would just be bad. So we have to assume that force field can't be fixed, I think. And I'm not saying that it's actually broken. It's just like this is the main mechanic that dictates the way Protoss is played. But I don't know. I like the idea behind it. I feel like it definitely gives more mid-game potential to PvZ if you're not doing any sort of all-in. Theognis, what do you think about PvT? See you sitting there just dying.
Yeah, I think it might be a little bit too strong, because yeah, like we were talking about, like the Colossus drop, like in Wings of Liberty, it was like pretty strong, but it was kind of risky because you would skip out on like a lot of the units early on. But now, like in conjunction with like the Mothership Core, it's actually pretty safe with the Photon Overcharge. Yeah. So they can do that with like 0 risk at it, and that kind of just forces the like Terran to kind of open up mines just to kind of like defend against that, because if they do any sort of buy opening, like Command Center first or Reaper into like 3 barracks, you're actually never going to catch that, ever. Like, even with like Stim Marines. You kind of have to just go like 1 base, like Viking, or just make like a turret ring around your base.
Even with Vikings, you couldn't chase it, right?
Yeah, you basically just like tell them to go back home. But it's such a big investment, like you can't really do much other than that.
So what you're saying is Terran will feel like Protoss does right now with the speed medevacs.
No. There's actually a cooldown for that, but like Warp Prism is just like there's nothing stopping it. So
I love just putting
words speed vacs full time.
Yeah, speed medevacs full time. Also, like the MVP or Tails, the DT build or whatever. I think that's going to be really strong with like the Warp Prism.
Yeah, right.
You just like drop a DT, like snipe, and then run away, and it's just like, I don't know. And there's like some like timings where they just kind of come in before your like 10-minute medevac push, or like right when you move out. They drop 4 zealots, harass a bit, and then that slows you down long enough where they'll get like Colossus out to kind of defend everything, and it's like just a win-win situation from there. So
yeah, it seems really good actually. I'm just like imagining how cool it would be with my regular openings, like the one Colossus openings. You can just make a Warp Prism now and be like, well, I'm gonna kite you all the way to my main base. Good luck, and like, and then you get there and you just drop your Colossus and defend it easily, anyways. Which, it's like it's some pretty sick options do get opened up.
Yeah, I was actually like, I thought the Oracle change was better than this one. I think this one's like way too extreme. So.
I think
I'm actually, huh? Go ahead.
I think the better thing for them to do is to do what they said their intention is to open up harassment and multi-prong based gameplay, because that is the problem with Protoss. Like almost everyone agrees that they're too deathball-y late game and it gets really boring, and necessarily so. That's how their army is by far the most efficient. And I think they need to make changes that would actually encourage late game harassment, make that better instead of this, which, like we said, does nothing late game. And I'm not sure what that is. Like an upgrade to give Phoenix more utility, since they are kind of the harassment unit that's weak in a fight, or you give them different options for warp in. I don't know. Or maybe give the Oracle something, a late game or expensive upgrade that then turns it into a viable harassment unit, even if there are already spores and turrets up, something like that. Instead of this,
multiple beams.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, don't give them ideas.
What if we gave a fleet beacon level upgrade to Phoenixes that let them hit ground?
I don't know, because if you make it hit ground, then it lets it join in. I can't tell if you're serious or not now that people are laughing.
He's serious.
I'm throwing stuff out there, that's all.
If you do that, then they're still good in the main battle, and then I think Protoss stays deathball.
Hold on, how about this? What if you give Phoenix an upgrade that lets it attack buildings on the ground?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, that's within the general... It's just something that will make them good at harassment that is not good for their deathball. Because I wouldn't
mind that. Like, I would fly around with, like, a group of 5 Phoenixes late game against Terran if I could, like, snipe turrets and snipe depots on the edge of the base and stuff.
Imagine this: you snipe the turrets with the range upgrade, and then the speed warp prism comes in, it just warps in everything.
Oh, that would be
How do you stop that?
Oh my god, you don't stop that. That's how you stop that.
I was just imagining the Phoenix attacking the ground. Like, they would just like go behind the Hydras and everything would melt in a second. You would have to get Corruptors, and they're already kind of bad against Phoenixes with the range.
Or give Graviton Beam an upgrade that allows it to pick up buildings, so that it can then disable and/or kill buildings.
That would be awesome.
When you drop the building, it does damage to itself.
If I have 10 Phoenixes, why can't I have them work together to pick up an Ultralisk? That's ridiculous, as far as I'm concerned. They're not going to do that much damage to the Ultra anyways, come on. I'm actually a little bit nervous about what it would do to PvP, because I feel like PvP is getting into like a pretty cool spot right now, because really you can go any tech route. Like, you can go and expand into Robo, you can go Twilight Tech or Stargate Tech, and you can kind of expand into both those as well, so there's like a lot of options right now. But if speed comes up, like in Wings of Liberty, if you could go speed Warp Prism Immortals, it was like the best thing. Like, but you had to get the robotics support, and you had to get the actual upgrade. So it was like, can you fit this in there? And if they open Phoenixes when you're trying to do this, you're screwed. Whereas right now it's like, well, if they do open Phoenixes, I guess it isn't all that good, but it might make like a kind of circular metagame that ends up at Phoenixes or something. You know what I mean? Because if I can get Immortals out that quickly with the Speed Warp Prism, that's going to be good even against Blink Stalkers. No response from my.
I don't know anything about PvP.
We agree with everything you just said.
Thank you, guys. We're all PvP experts here. So, what would you guys? Because all right, here let's actually just jump into this, because this is actually kind of a fun conversation. Right now, qualified for the WCS season finals, we have from Korea Terran Zerg Protoss. From Europe, we have Terran Zerg. And from North America, we have guaranteed 1 Zerg and 1 Protoss, and the rest of the people have to play their matches, and we'll see. So there's not a lot of Protosses, okay? And if we look at all the tournaments, Protosses really aren't doing as well anymore. In the top 8 of Europe, there was only one. And Europe used to be Protoss dominated, if you guys remember. In North America, it's all Korean Protosses that are really getting deep. And in Korea, I mean, who do we really have? This season we had 3 Protosses go into the round of 16, I believe it was. That's pretty damn low. And really only Parting showed like a ton of skill this season. So is there a problem with Protoss right now?
Isn't Protoss doing exceptionally well in Pro League? Like, I don't know
They're
the
doing
stats,
well in
but
Pro League, it's true.
I feel like they are the dominant race there.
Now,
talking to people on the
everyone's
Korean
saying it's
ladder.
like the maps though for Pro League.
It
They're
could
kind of
be.
favored for
Probably
that,
is.
so.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, if we look at like the Challenger leagues, I don't know if Korean Challenger is going on, but I know for both North America and EU, it's very, very heavily Protoss.
Yeah.
And since a lot of the invites and stuff for this, like for the WCS Season 1, were based on the end of Wings, you get a lot of Zergs feeding in that because of how Zerg dominant the end of Wings was. So, like, Zerg's doing very well, but statistically that could be skewed just by the original player pool we're drawing from. And the fact that so many Protosses are qualifying up from the qualifiers makes me think that that might be the case.
It's a good
Also
point.
in Codex, wasn't there only like 5 Protosses?
In the first
so
round, there was, I want to say 6 in the round of 32.
This was like half
Yeah,
the
it
game.
wasn't,
That's not.
it
Like,
wasn't that impressive. Yeah. So back to the Pro League point about them doing well in Pro League, and Theognis, you mentioned it might be maps, but let me pose this question, you guys. Best of 3 versus best of 5 versus best of 1. Protoss seems like a race because we have so many different build orders and so many weird timings that it might just be super powerful in a best of 1. Like in a best of, you guys know what I mean. A best of 1, you can just pull out like this super specialized thing. Maybe you can only do it once. Maybe it's just going to be very hard for him to scout or he hasn't seen it before, and bam, it's over. Whereas when you can prepare for a best of 3 or a best of 5, Protoss does a little bit worse. Do you guys think that that's actually the case? Does that have any influence?
Definitely. Protoss is so build order dependent. Like, yeah, it's just definitely. If you have more time to study and prepare for your opponent, I would be really interested to see a statistical comparison between Protoss win rates and the types of wins Protosses get between the all-kill seasons and the preset lineup seasons, because I think even that difference would be pretty big for them. But if you know your opponent, if you can prepare for a single map for that opponent, I think Protoss definitely suffers the most.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, Protoss is definitely the most build-oriented race.
I haven't watched too many like Protoss games, but is there anyone where they're like totally getting dominated by like a certain aspect? Like, is there like a weakness you feel like in like one of the Protoss matchups, PVT or PVZ or something? Well, I did watch the one like SOS against Sulky, and he was just going for like a quick third, and he just kind of
that was just a really weird match. But most PVZs. Most PVZs are either dying to like mid-game Hydra Roachling-ish timings, or Zerg gets up Mass Muta, and then either Protoss just gets frustrated and attacks and dies, or Mass Muta gives too much map control. Those are most Zerg wins. And then occasionally people sell out due to Mass Swarm host.
Now too.
Yeah.
What do you mean sell out?
Yeah, sell out.
How is that selling out exactly?
They're like, okay, we're not going to play an entertaining or interesting or enjoyable game. We're just going to make these units, and we're going to sit here, and eventually you're going to leave.
It's super interesting.
Am I the... Okay, good. Catz is with me on this. I find it interesting and fun to watch. Yeah. Except when I see the Protoss just sit there and fight against Locust, and I'm like, this hurts to watch.
Yeah, the big difference between Broodlord Infestor Spines and Swarmhost play is that the Protoss is actually forced into engaging by the Swarmhosts. Where in Broodlord Spine, you would just sit there and wait for someone to get bored.
Well, you had to get the Vortex off, so you wait for them to move, because you're like, well, I mean, you can't kill me without moving here. Whereas the Locust can, so Protoss has to move.
Yeah.
Which actually, now that I say it out loud, it sounds pretty bad.
It can only happen in some maps anyways. Yeah, I agree with Greg. I think there's good Viper timings as well, and good a few other compositions that can be used. But yeah, for the most part, Protoss is pretty strong at those.
Well, You know, it's kind of interesting because you guys are mentioning about how build order based it is, and I do feel like it's extremely build order based. Like, you have to have ridiculously sharp builds and know all your timings just right as Protoss. And I feel like it's super unforgiving. Like, if you forget one time to have a Zealot on hold position in your choke, you might just lose, you know? And that they have a lot of stuff like that. But when I watch completely, like, the best couple of Protoss in the world, like Parting and Rain, I feel like when Parting's playing everybody, it's very build order based, but it's build order plus mind games, which scares me about Protoss and Protoss's future a little bit, because when the best in the world with the best build orders and the best execution and the best multitasking is basing everything off of being really tricky, like, he can play straight up, and he does against lesser opponents. You'll see it quite often. You'll just do like a solid build, but like when he's playing the best players in the world, man, it is all tricks and smoke and mirrors and stuff. And then, but then Rain kind of saves me, because Rain will actually just play you completely straight up, because he like plays with that mentality that he's better than everyone in the world, and he's like, well, I can just outplay you in every way. I'll just scout what you're doing and kill you.
Well, to be fair, Parting has always been a pretty build-ordery player. Like, and he embraces it. He goes in interviews and talks about how his 2-base Immortal is untouchable, and then he goes and plays a different strategy because, like you said, he's a very mind game-oriented player. So I think the existence of Rain, but I don't know. I think Protoss player base is just skewed more towards the Partings and the MCs because, like we said, they are so build-order dependent. But that doesn't mean it's impossible to play it the other way. It's just the strengths of the race are the fact that they have so many powerful build orders, and you're going to have a much higher percentage playing that way than you would, you know, if you tried to play Terran build ordery or Zerg build ordery. It's just they don't have as many weapons to work with. You have lower percentage because it's easier for your opponent to guess what you're doing if you only have 4 things to choose from instead of 8.
Okay.
So I think it favors Protosses who do like that. They're going to win more on average, given the same skill set.
Yeah, and I think everyone does mind games, like even Innovation, like 2 Raxes against. Yeah,
but I feel like that's more of like good match planning as opposed to like part of the way when I watch Parting play, like again, especially when he plays someone like Life, like you can just see by what he's showing and stuff. He's like, he's gonna think that I'm showing this just to show it, but then I'm gonna really do it, you know? And like, I feel like it's a little bit more mind gamey than the other races. So do you guys, because we've been talking about this a little bit, is Protoss, is there a problem with it? And Idra, you had some really good points about, you know, there was a lot of Zergs coming in through Wings of Liberty and stuff, and that's just kind of the seeding system and all that jazz. Do you guys actually think that's the case? What do you guys think about the actual state of Protoss right now at the top pro level? Because it varies as we go down the scale, obviously, whereas... And the thing is, some of those Challenger League might build up and stuff, but it doesn't mean because, you know, one set of Challenger League in North America has a lot of Protoss. I think it matters more what's in Korea and with that building up and stuff. So what do you guys actually think about it?
I think there just might be like too many options though, because like a lot of people are doing like all these weird builds and stuff. Like, I mean, I haven't watched too many like Protoss games, but like the SOS or Soul Key one, it felt like just a lot of mind games, like you said, just because like teammates, but. I feel like there are kind of solid builds out there, and I think probably just if give it like some more time, maybe like another season or so, I think Protosses will do a lot better.
Catz?
Yeah, I think so too. Just in general, I think that Protoss players can be studied as well and kind of like figure out their style. Like there's usually, you know, the Rain, and then there's the Parting, so to say. You know, like there's more build order oriented players. Like if you're playing SOS, you probably want to prepare for SOS. So there isn't really a stable Protoss metagame just because of the wide variety of shit that they can do. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say if there's anything wrong with it. But I think if there's a race that's weak, it's probably Protoss. But I don't know. Then again, I hear in TVP that Protoss is pretty much unbeatable too, once in a while. So I don't know. It's weird.
I think Protoss has pretty consistently been the lowest. Like we've only had two Korean or 2 Protoss GSL winners, and one of them was Seed, who was kind of one-timey. I mean, it's not as good of a race for the match tournament or like the best of 3, best of 5, best of 7 kind of series because of those reasons we talked about. And like Rain is one of the first really, really high performing, super straight up macro oriented Protosses. It's just the race isn't as good for that style, and the other style is never going to perform as consistently, because if you could play risky and tricky and still win almost every game, even when you've got the disadvantage end of the builds, then that would be clearly overpowered. And so I think as long as Protoss stays like that, and this kind of goes back to, I think as long as force field's in the game, I think they do stay like that. I think it necessitates it. I think they're going to be very up and down in tournaments and matches and whatnot, but still consistently pretty good at like pro league kind of play.
You know, that's kind of interesting. I've had this theory for a long time, actually, since MC rose to power. Because if you look at the other two races, Terran and Zerg, there's always top-end pros that you can study and copy, and they all, for the most part, play the same brand. Right? Like, for instance, Theognis with Terran, you can look at Innovation and Flash and maybe a couple others, and they're doing basically the same thing. It's basically figured out what the best play is, and you kind of can look and say, okay, this is, if I'm mechanically superior, this is the best play, and then here's someone that's a little bit tricky, here's like an interesting type of way to cheese, and that type of thing. And then with Zerg, it's kind of similar. It's like, okay, well, Life has some tricky, cool moves that maybe I can incorporate, but here's Roro, and here's how you play a macro Zerg and stuff like that. Whereas Protoss, and I've felt like this for a very long time, when MC rose up, he was so attack-oriented and kind of like crazy aggressive that wasn't a good role model for building a solid foundation of Protoss players in the world, because people are like, well, okay, so this is the timing attack that I'm going to study, as opposed to, oh, this is how you defend well, and this is how you play that long macro game. And Protoss in StarCraft 2, I've mentioned this before, is a lot like Protoss in StarCraft 1, in my opinion, where in StarCraft 1, there were 6 Protoss in the world, the 6 dragons that were just the best by far at Protoss, and the 7th place guy was way below that, and they all played completely differently. Like, they all had completely their own styles. You could cover up the names and fan the games, and they'd tell you which one it was. And I feel like that exists in StarCraft 2 as well, where if you look at our top 5 or 6 Protoss, they all play completely differently, their complete own brand, and no one knows what to follow, which makes it harder to have a solid group of like macro Protosses or a solid group of anything, because people are kind of like taking bits and pieces of everybody, and no one... You guys know what I mean? Do you agree with what I'm saying at all?
Yeah, that's actually really interesting, because MC, both, I think, historically the most successful Protoss, but he was definitely the first big Protoss. And so, like, the extent that he had an impact on the Protoss player base, I never really thought about that before. But you can see it ripple down. Like, whenever anyone plays a special game in a televised Korean league, you can see everyone else copying it on the ladder the next day. So the extent that the only successful Protoss doing 2 base all-ins every game, the extent that must have changed the way Protoss players approach the game actually has to be pretty profound. So maybe it's not force fields, maybe it's MC that's the heart of all the Protoss problems.
Yeah, the other thing too is Protoss has always been like the race that you react to, and not the race that reacts. And I'm not sure why, but I think there's ways that Protoss can react, especially with like hallucinated phoenixes and stuff like that. They have the information at hand, and I feel like they have every tool that they need to counter anything that their opponents can be making, but they still, go to those build orders and expect you you're the one that has to scout them and make sure they're not being tricky for the most part. So I don't know. I know that my roommate, for example, he scouts with that kind of stuff, and then he reacts to whatever he sees. But for the most part, Protoss just kind of have a build order, whether even if it's a macro build order, it's, okay, I get 3 Void Rays, and I get a Void Ray first because that's good against Roaches all-ins. I'm not going to scout for the Roach all-in, but that's why I get it, right? And that's why it doesn't go out. And then just build up Colossus Void Ray and have fun. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Wait, so like I only really know like TVP and like PvT. Are you saying there's kind of like not a really stable PvT to play?
PvZ, you mean?
No, PvT. Like,
oh no, PvT I would say is the most stable. Like there's a couple build orders that are really, really stable that you can use.
Yeah, because like we said, like Rain, just like
Yeah.
double forge Colossi, and that seems pretty safe. And like I feel like you can do that like every single game without getting like hardcore like hard counter.
Yeah,
Um,
I basically do agree with you on that. I think
Yeah.
PVT is the least weird of the 3 matchups.
Honestly,
Yeah,
I think
like I
even
don't really know
PvZ
much PvZ.
I think even PvZ, the 5 Phoenix into a third base with fast Colossus, then into Templar before Vipers become too threatening. I think that's a pretty good go-to. The thing is just if you play those good go-tos, then you're foregoing so much more with Protoss because they have those really powerful all-ins. Like, you're not doing a Blink all-in or an Immortal all-in or whatever. So you're giving up those pretty high percentage chances. And especially if you do that every single game, then your Protoss or your opponent doesn't even have to fear it. Then I think Protoss is just giving up too much. And that's why, like, with Terran, the Gumi Hos are the exceptions. The weird players are the exceptions. Whereas with Protoss, the Reigns are the exceptions because it's more beneficial to play a cheesy style with Protoss. So you're more opportunity cost.
Okay. All right, final question on the subject matter. Now that we've all discussed it to death, Idra, does Protoss need a buff?
No, I think they should get a late game harassment buff like what I discussed, but then their Death Ball would also need a nerf.
So you want to rebalance everything about Protoss?
Yes.
Thank you, Greg.
I stand by that.
All right, Catz, does Protoss need a nerf? I mean, a buff. Good thing I didn't ask that to Idra. Jesus.
It's hard to say, and I think it comes back to one of the opening statements, and the force field. Blizzard has tried to buff everything around the force field, like the blink cooldown was buffed. Just little things like that, the Warp Prism, but it doesn't seem to work. And I don't know. Every time they buff something, it seems to be the early game, and I don't think the Warp Prism is the right buff. If anything, I think that they might need a buff, but it's not the Warp Prism.
What would it be? If you had to guess, if I had to put a gun to your head right now and make a quick little balance patch to fix it.
I would say change the Oracle again, but then everyone would be like, "Oh, again?"
It's a new bunker.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that the Oracle was a good idea to change things up, and it comes from the Stargate, which is necessary for Mutas. So I think if there's a unit that needs buffing, it's the Oracle. I think it serves a lot of the same purposes as the Phoenixes, and I don't think it's used too well or too much. So
which buff would you give it? Would you give it just the speed buff that they were talking about, or something else?
Well, shit, it's hard to say. It's like Protoss has a lot of everything. Like I think they have a lot of tools that they can use, and it's hard to find one that isn't there. It's hard to find a missing link. So I don't know. Maybe the speed buff to try it out. But again, like I think that Blizzard kind of knows that this would be a good idea, and that's why they tweaked the Oracle so much.
Yeah.
But I just don't know. Maybe. Wait, maybe if it could detect what if you could detect it had detection before. It has detection still? No. Maybe put detection back on the mothership core. How about that? So that you can clear creep tumors.
Oh hell no.
That was
hell no.
like no one ever got to use it. But,
yeah, they'll just skip Robo and stuff. It'll be like kind of crazy. They go double forge one gate.
Yeah.
No Robo. Defend everything.
I think the creep clearing would just be another early game buff. Really, I don't see how that helps too much late game.
Yeah. Well, it would because you can deny creep with it. For example, in PvZ.
By that point, I think you have an observer anyway, though.
But you don't need an observer. That's the thing.
You mean just going around separately? Yeah. But no, I think the creep is most important when you're playing the Turtley style, because then you get. I mean, it's always important, but it's most important when you're playing Turtley style, because then you get static defense everywhere. And with that, Protoss has map control anyway, because you don't have any mobility, so they can just use their army plus an observer to control creep. I don't know. I don't think. Maybe. I don't think that would really be. I think they need more of a harassment. A harassment that doesn't burn like 1,200 minerals worth of zealots every time. Because when you can do that, that's very powerful, but a very big investment. And I think that's what most encourages Zerg to just sit back and do the mass static defense, because there's no other good way to deal with that, but it can be dealt with as long as you're willing to focus on it.
I kind of disagree with that though, because Protoss doesn't need the minerals that much. Like all the late game is going to be based off of gas heavy units, so they can burn those zealots. Like you never feel wrong making a bunch of zealots, do you, Dan? Like
No,
Warp
not
Prism
really.
zealots,
Like,
you lose them, you're like,
it's normally not a big deal. It's, I guess, when it is a big deal is when the game is close, like really close and on like a knife's edge. It's like, how many zealots do I warp in right now in the main base? Do I really try to get, that Greater Spire or what?
Yeah.
Because he's bearing down on me right now. So I guess that's the one time where it's, I sometimes regret doing it, but overall, yeah, you have a lot of minerals to waste when you get to that point in the game.
Yeah, I'm not really sure then, because I guess they do already have harassment potential in the warp ins, so I'm not really sure what to buff and what to nerf.
Okay. So Catz, you say take detection off of the Oracle and put it on the mothership core. Is that your buff to Protoss?
yeah, maybe, and put back the time warp on the Oracle.
Oh no, that'd be way too strong. If you could spam that, no way.
Maybe it could be a little bit smaller.
What, you mean like get like 3 oracles or something and just be like,
Have the entire
time
battle.
warp.
Yeah, entire battle covered in time warp. No Protoss wins every single game.
You want to talk about lack of micro? Let's talk about that idea. That's pretty sick. I wouldn't mind that, actually. I'd love... Oh my god, I like this idea, Catz. This is actually maybe better than the Speed Warp Prism. Alright, Theognis, does Protoss need a buff?
No, I do not think so. Like, I'm only going to comment on, like, TVP or PVT, because that's basically all I know. I've been playing on NA and EU, and I see, like, some people, like, really react to, like, what I'm doing, like, really well. And I feel like you kind of have to be really reactive as Protoss, because there's a lot of corners you can cut, like, especially with hallucination. They could scout really fast for basically free, just kind of, like, really early mana. And then you can cut kind of corners depending on what you scout, because, like, I played this guy, like, a few times the other day, and, I was going command center first on, like, 3 barracks, pretty standard, or, like, Reaper into 3 barracks, and he just wouldn't make any observers. Like, he would go Robo, skip the observers, because, like, there's no threat of Widow Mines, go really quick Colossi, like 2 Colossi, and then I'm coming with my 10-minute push, and then he just kind of pushes me back and takes a really quick third, and he has Blink with it. And I think kind of just cutting corners like that, depending on what you scout, is really strong. Yeah. And, they have hallucination, so, like, if they do see mines, then, yeah, you just make a few observers and then play standard from there. So I feel like there's a lot of things that Protoss could be reactive with, and it's kind of unexplored. And I feel like if people just kind of experiment with that, it will be really, really strong, because I see, like, some players do some things right, but they also do some things wrong. I feel like if someone kind of, like, combines all of the strengths of that, it's going to be, like, really powerful. But I just haven't seen that yet, so.
I think I have to agree with you out of all of this. Like, I think that PVT is, like, really solid right now. I feel like it goes the better player most of the time, unless they randomly get Hellbats your mirror line. But,
yeah.
Side joke.
No, but that's, like, risky as it is. Like, if you
immortalize
them, they're just going to die. So.
That's my own personal thing right now, losing to Hellbat drops. But no, I think PVT is, like, pretty solid right now, and I play, like, the most reactionary Protoss I possibly can. So I totally am with you on that.
I think try that. You should try that, cutting the observer.
No,
like, when they come with a 2-minute max, you just, like, F that and kill them. It's, like, so strong.
I will never cut the observer. Never.
Okay.
I don't care if I have detection on the mothership core. I'm not cutting the observer. The observer is my friend, and he spots everything that's coming at me. I love the observer. But I think it's that...
Most excited I've ever seen you was when you got that pack of mana replays, and he was doing, like, mass rush observer builds.
Yes, that's actually true. Yeah, that's actually one of the things that helped me to make the final decision to switch to Protoss, like, permanently, was watching Mana with 2-gate observer openings against Terran. I'm like, oh, look at this. It's not an MC 6-gate all-in. I guess I can actually play this race. But yeah, I don't think that there's any problem with PVT, really. I think that's a pretty good matchup right now. I don't see any really big issues with it. As far as PvP goes, I'm a little bit worried what the Warp Prism might do to that matchup, as I was mentioning before, that it might get too much into Stargate play if it's so easy to ferry Immortals around and stuff. We'll have to see on that. I'm not really sure. But as far as PvZ goes, I think there might need to be a little tiny something, and I don't know if this is. I like the idea of the Warp Prism for that matchup. I really do, because I don't think of it as leading up to these all-ins. I suppose it definitely could help out, like with the 2 Immortal, 2 Colossus all-in. I guess I would definitely do a better job if I had a Speed Warp Prism first or something. But I think that would also give away that it's coming, which is one of the big things about an all-in like that off 2 base, that they don't know until the last second. So I'm happy with the change for that. I want to see how it affects that matchup, personally. Bam. All right. Done the Protoss chit-chat.
Okay, what if
Yeah.
hallucinated Phoenix hallucinated 2 Phoenixes instead of 1? I think that would be all you need.
Whoa. That would be sick. Oh my god. I could even find hidden dark shrines like that. That would be so nice.
I mean, that would be gearing it towards everything that we're talking about, right? The lack of reactiveness from Protoss and the lack of going into macro games and cheesing instead.
Yeah,
I don't know, like Theo said, I feel like Protoss have always, and like I think we've arrived to this conclusion that Protoss have always been the race doing the timings and doing the aggression and the race that you want to scout against. And traditionally hasn't been the best at scouting and reacting. And, you know, then the role models come in and all that shit.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I think maybe a little bit more scouting would be nice. You know, I do a lot of funky builds. And I usually run into people that do the exact same shit no matter what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, that's all kinds of players and all levels of players, including some of the best, will just not do anything. But then there's Protoss players that come to mind. For example, Hydra and Sase. They may not, you know, be the best Protoss in the world, but they react to the shit I do, even if it's funky as hell. Like, for example, when I started going 3 hatch before pool like a year ago, I'm fairly sure they had never seen it before. But I remember I would go 3 hatch before pool, and Hydra would go, you know, Nexus Forge, or Sase would go Nexus Gateway Nexus. You know,
like as a third base.
Yeah. So I was like, oh,
Nexus.
You know,
I don't know, man. When Catz is talking, it could be anything.
With White Rod, it definitely could be, actually.
But it was cool to see, you know, that some people were willing to react to what they saw. I think Protoss needs more of that.
I do agree with that sentiment. It kills me when I watch someone in like GSL or something scout something and then not do anything when they see it. I'm like, well, he's countering you. Why aren't you changing anything that you're doing? And then they die, and I'm like, oh my god, this is terrible. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about something else. Let's talk about innovation against Symbol. That round of 4 matches. Did you guys all see it? I assume that you all watched.
Yeah, I did.
I saw the first 3 games and I went to sleep. And then I heard how Symbol won the next 2, and I decided not to watch the VODs.
That was not a terrible decision. It was not the most exciting set of games. Theognis, what did you think about that series?
Yeah, it just felt like Symbol was kind of desperate. I was kind of disappointed that he didn't try to at least like do a big macro game, kind of like what he did with the first game.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool. He just went up to 90 drones, and he seemed pretty safe doing that. It was just felt.
After watching
decisions.
After watching the first and second game, I just felt like he was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then he went into it and he played like about as good as you can early on. He got into a really good shape, and then Innovation just did Innovation, like he does whatever he does, and then he just got obliterated. He was like, well, time to cheese.
Yeah,
it has to be so frustrating because Innovation played that about as safe as you can. He rushed out tanks. He didn't expect fat. He played very, very safe, and Symbol played on the greedy side of normal and did it really well and got away with everything, and then to just still get macroed so easily. That's very, very discouraging, especially against someone with a reputation like Innovation.
Yeah. What do you think about him going Broodlords though in that situation? Because he was getting like pressured a lot, and then he just kind of went towards. I thought Ultras would be better.
Yeah, I think Ultras are almost always better, just because I think if you go Broodlord, you're guaranteed to get picked apart with with Marauder drops. I think everything just dies. Switching into Broodlords, maybe, but even that, I don't really do. Generally, I feel like the best CVT is just to get up to that Ultra Queen Infestor late game and wait for a good engagement.
Yeah.
Especially especially if you're going up against Innovation. Holy shit.
Oh yeah.
But
he drops everywhere anyway. So
yeah, I feel like if you have an economic advantage, then you can go Broodlords and kind of because they're good at punishing mind play, and then you can crush an engagement then attack or something like that. But I don't think if it's even Broodlords are just so expensive and it's such a risk, and like you said, then they can pick everything apart. Yeah, I think Ultras are better, and even then, I guess we'll get into Sulky against Innovation later, but even then, I think that switching to Ultras too early is not the best idea every time. I think that in that particular game, Sulky had a lead until he did that.
I actually, are you talking about the Pro League game that was on yesterday? Or
yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I wanted to bring that up. I like the layer heavy against Innovation a little bit. It seems like he will kill you during the Ultralist transition every time, because I felt like Sulky was doing really well with a very layer heavy. For anyone that doesn't know, him and Innovation played in the Ace match of Pro League yesterday, and like a very like Baneling heavy, Muta heavy layer type style, like kind of like DRG type of play. I feel like might be the best way to play against Innovation. You guys saw that match?
Yes. Yeah, I saw. I think that's probably one of the best ways to play. I said it on a few episodes ago. I really feel like that counterattack, just taking out the economy, is probably the best way. Because if you're just sitting back at your forge, kind of defending, he's just gonna kind of wear you down, and then once 3-3 hits, you're just kind of die. I really feel like you kind of have to go for that counterattack style, and I thought it went pretty well. It was just I actually thought like Innovation or Sulky, like if he held off that like one counterattack after he killed the third or fourth, I think he probably would have won the game, but it just kind of, just kind of lost.
Yeah, he was transitioning to Ultras then, I think. Yeah. He was doing great when he was just on Muddling Baneling, and I don't think he needed to transition because Innovation was doing more of the same, and he was slowly pulling ahead. So I think if Innovation tried to transition into later game units, which Theron usually doesn't do anyways, then you can switch or kill them. But it was kind of like whoever switches loses, and Sulky switched. Because Sulky had a lead, I think. Like, he was doing so much damage with his Baneling run-bys, he wouldn't stop with those. And then he was defending so well. He had a base lead, I don't know, he was doing fantastic. And then he decided to switch and started losing a grip on the game.
Yeah, I didn't see that actual game, but I've always really liked that style. And that's how Sulky, well, it's similar, from the sounds of it, it's similar to how Sulky actually beat Innovation the last time they played.
Yep.
I think it has. Yeah, I think that style has the most potential, especially if you're like a really good multitasker. Like, it really requires you to be able to outplay your opponent. You have to be faster than them, and you have to be everywhere. But a player like Sulky can definitely get away with that, and I think it's way better than just letting it get to the late game where Innovation's so comfortable. Just medevacks everywhere.
Yeah, you really have to kind of. Yeah. Oh, you really have to kind of hit your larva injects with that, especially because you're basically like sacking a bunch of Banes just to take out a base. And you really need to hit the larva injects just to hold off that counterattack.
Yeah, and if you forget to morph Banelings once, you die. It's don't try it at home kind of shit, but it was amazing to see.
We have to take into consideration for that Pro League game that they weren't showing, especially Sulky wasn't showing his real stuff. Because Innovation has shown that he is actually just going to play basically the same way. He'll mix in a little bit of other stuff, but like, I don't think that was far off of what he's going to do in the finals in most of the games. Whereas Sulky, I think we have to take into consideration that he's about to play against Innovation in the finals, and maybe he realized that he was getting ahead, like you were saying, Catz, and he's like, you know what? Yeah, Pro League's important, but fuck this. I am going to transition into Ultra because I don't want him to know that I can kill him with this type of style. Is there any chance?
I feel like that.
Am I giving too much credit right now?
I think so. I think that's a pretty big stretch.
I think so too. But at the same time, it almost sounds real. I don't know, like for all the reasons that we were talking about, like the Innovation style is so very Innovation required because you need to have that multitasking. You can't miss larva injects. You can't miss Banelings morphing, and on top of that, you have to be all over the place, attacking everywhere and running Banelings into mineral lines. while defending and splitting perfectly against mines. So I don't know, like I don't feel like he needed ultras. I don't know that ultras, even like because he had no infestors, they're gonna be easily kiteable. It's a huge map. It's whirlwind. I think it was just a really crappy decision on his part, and I don't know. Maybe.
Until he went that, it really seemed to me like he was doing well. So whenever I see that right before a big match like this, I'm like, how real is this? Because you got to know that to Sulky, GSL Finals is more important than a single Pro League match, right?
Well, the teams kind of take it seriously, don't they? Like the Pro League
really
teams,
seriously.
They take it over. Yeah, they prioritize it over individual leagues. So.
Like if he actually did that and his coach knew about it, he would be in very, very serious trouble. But like, how does the coach actually say, "Hey, you threw that"? Like, it's a pretty hard judgment call to make.
The thing is, he might have been like, "Well, I might win with this anyways." You know, it's not like he didn't necessarily have to throw it. He might have just gone down a different train track because he's like, "Well, you know, this is going to look actually normal because this is what most Zergs try to do anyways."
Yeah, exactly. If it was Wings of Liberty and he went ultras, the coach would have known he was throwing.
Yes.
I don't know. I didn't see the exact game, but Mutiling Baneling has unless you're incredibly far ahead, it has a real clock on it. When Terran hits 3-3, especially if you're still on 2-2, much less don't have ultras, stuff just starts to melt. So I don't know. It can be very scary, and it can actually be a bad decision, even if it looks like it could be a good decision to stay on Mutiling Baneling in those kind of scenarios.
Actually, I didn't take note of it in my brain. How close was Innovation to 3-3 when he decided to go to Ultra?
Do
we know?
Unless it was really
sure.
I think he was probably pretty close, but I didn't actually take notes, so yeah, that might be too.
I thought Sulky was so close to like holding it off, you know, like maybe if he just try to like respread creep, because like after the first clear, he kind of stopped. But you know that might be too much multitasking or something because there's like all these counterattacks going on. But you know if he just has creep like a further out, then Innovation really has to kind of overcommit or then, like basically run on to creep because he has to do damage because he just lost his third. So that might force him into a really bad engagement. You know, just kind of those like types of scenarios. So.
Yeah, if he really wanted to go into ultras, he should have slowed down with the harassing, because pretty much what he did is, okay, here's 20 banelings. You know, I'm gonna kill a bunch of SCVs again, and then I'm gonna transition into ultras. So I'm not gonna have as much shit. So good luck and fun. But you know, I think if he kept those banelings back and just defended, he had an economic lead already, and he could have gone into ultras like that.
All right, so I have a question for you guys. So I was playing on EU, and I played Stefano just like a few days ago, but right before WCS EU. I'm not sure if he was just like experimenting around, but he was just like base racing me. It's like whenever I moved out, he would just like run in, try to snipe my second and third, and then just hold the counterattack. So
he's like kind of playing like Shine or something?
Yeah, he's kind of playing like a PVZ or ZVP, like Muta, just kind of base racing, take out bases, and then just come back and then kill the attack.
I've always felt that whenever he plays Muta, he does it too Muta heavy. Like he makes too much Muta compared to his ground units, and that's the one way to really make it work is to not engage the army. So that may
he did a lot of that in WCS EU. He was getting, you know, he always gets those plus attack upgrades, but then he just starts killing command centers and stuff, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, that's what he was doing. And
so
I thought that was pretty strong.
With the style he seems to just go to, the mass Muta stuff, that kind of just makes sense it's the best way to utilize it. So I doubt he's trolling, but I mean, Muta isn't his go-to.
I think it sounds pretty normal.
I've seen him
for what
do
I
stuff
saw.
like that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can identify that, I guess you could just leave a few Widow Mines back and then. You know.
Yeah, that'd probably do alright.
The thing is, if you like overcommit the defenses, they can just circle back around and then kill your main army if you're leaving too much back. So,
yeah.
Kind of goes both ways.
You need a third eBay for building armor and turret range. Bam, done. So what about the finals Innovation against Sulky? What do you guys think? How is this going to go? It's going to be a best of 7. I think Sulky is the only person, it seems, that has been able to kind of hold his own against Innovation as of late. And I do want to throw this out there, that Innovation has about 1 billion TVZs played recently on TV to study. And they all play very, very similarly. So there's a lot of information out there. How do you guys think the match is going to go?
And like you said, Innovation's TVZ is Innovation's TVZ. besides the occasional cheese, we don't really see him mix it up. Like against Symbol, he made a couple of tanks early on because Symbol loves his roaches, and that's about the most variation we've seen from him in a macro game
He
throughout all.
proxy Rex.
Well, yeah,
No,
except for that. Like I said, the random cheese. I don't know.
Gotta
I
throw
just
some of it in.
innovation is just so good, but Sulky is the one person we've seen beat him. We saw him push it close, but I think innovation knows that Sulky's not really going to. I think if he doesn't do the Massling Baneling, the very aggressive, the constant counterattacks and all that, I don't think he has much of a chance, just because no one else had thus far. And Sulky's good, but I don't think he's that much better than everyone else. And so I think innovation knows that, and he goes in and he prepares for it the same way he did for Symbol's Roach all-ins. And he just makes those little adjustments, and then his mechanics carry him through. And I think he wins like 4-2. It's definitely not going to be a sweep. Sulky is good enough that doesn't happen, but I think innovation is just too good.
Okay. What about you guys?
I don't know. I think that Sulky, like you said, has a small advantage in the fact that he can study everything. The 2 games that Symbol won against Innovation were all-ins, and it didn't seem like Innovation was super prepared for that. So maybe Sulky can find holes in Innovation's play like that, and Innovation is pretty much going to do the same, standard macro game every time. So I don't know. I think that Sulky can win. And I am sure it will be an amazing finals, probably the best that we've ever seen at GSL, because I think they're really closely matched, and the games that they have played so far have been ridiculous. It's kind of like there should be more hype to it than Life against Flash, because they're better than Life and Flash in my opinion.
They are.
Yeah.
So your final score on that match?
4-3 for I think that Innovation's gonna win, but I would bet on Sulky. I'll say 4-3 to Sulky.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Theognis.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 4-1 for Innovation.
This
I'm
is what I
hopeful.
was talking about with Terran players and Zerg players having players to look up to that are so good.
No, I want Sulky to win just to keep the nerfs away, but that's pretty much. I don't know. I don't think. I think Innovation is just gonna play straight up, just like all of the games. Maybe throw in 1-2 racks, but that's pretty much it. I was actually kind of surprised he even threw in Risk against Symbol, because I think he just wins in a straight up game every time. Some of the games that he lost to Symbol was just he went command center first, 1 barracks into a 3rd command center, and lost to a Lingbane attack. So that was just a silly risk that he did. I think if he just plays straight up, he's not gonna lose that many games. Probably just 1 max. So.
Yeah. Okay.
The thing is, I think Innovation needs to cut corners against Sulky. I don't think he can play as safe as he played against Symbol and still beat Sulky. So yeah.
I think it'll definitely be harder because Sulky's better than Symbol, but how much better than Symbol is he really?
Much better.
At a macro game, especially like a Mutiling Bane kind of macro game, I would say significant as you can get between 2 high caliber pro gamers.
Okay. I can't disagree because Symbol's such a roach guy, so it's well, this is what happens when you use roaches, dude. You get pretty far, but no GSL championship yet.
I think you drop Sulky into that game, the first one on the desert map in their match, where he has the creep spread, he has the 90 drones, he has the production. I think Sulky has at least a 50-50 chance to beat Innovation from there. I don't think Symbol was ever going to win that game.
Okay. As for my prediction, I'm still thinking about it, actually, and I'm sure I'll change it slightly before the finals. This one's actually, it's pretty hard to call the score. I'm actually going to say 4-3 Innovation, because my brain tells me 4-2 at first, but then I'm like, this is like a finals, and Sulky has so much to prepare with, so I think it's going to be a 4-3. But I have a feeling it's going to be a 4-3, but it's going to be kind of obvious that Innovation's going to be the winner. You know what I mean? Where it's I thought it would be a 4-2 for Innovation over Symbol, and it was a 4-2, but did it look as close as a 4-2 would lead you to believe? No. It looked completely one-sided the entire time, even during Symbol's wins, where it's well, of course Innovation's winning this series, even though you just won 2 games. So.
Well, if it comes down to a 7th game, though, it's hard for it to actually be like that, because one game can be one.
Well, I guess what I mean is the wins will be way more dominant for Innovation than Sulky's wins. Sulky's wins will be a little bit closer. Innovation's will be more dominant. I think it'll be a 4-3.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, let's jump to a really quick commercial, and then we will come back and talk about more stuff. So do not go away, guys.
Pros always want to have gear that's exactly fitted to their needs.
Something I've always dreamed about doing is using my experience as a gamer to make gear for people like me.
We're working with TT Esports to make the exact mouse, keyboard, and headset that we've always wanted to use.
When you're doing anything that you love to do, the tools that you're using matter the most.
We're designing these products from scratch to make sure that your gaming experience is completely seamless. The gear I use to play the game
Are the tools I use to win.
Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your little break and you got to pee and get yourself a nice little refresher drink because it's time to talk about some more StarCraft. Let's jump into the WCS European Finals. I'll go ahead and link people if they want to take a look at the brackets and stuff in the stream chat. I guess there you go. All right. So I'm sure you guys watched at least chunks of this. First off, just what did you think overall? I thought it was beautifully done. A lot of exciting games. What did you guys think?
I think MVP is just such a cool storyline because like he doesn't have wrists anymore, and like he's not near what anyone would call his prime, and yet he can still just come through and beat. I mean, it was Europeans, but he got through at least Stefano as a pretty world-class player. It's just cool how someone can. He was one of the original dominant players, and he's still around winning international tournaments.
Yeah.
It's not quite as cool as his last GSL run, but it's still pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he can never actually be forgotten or counted out. Like, I loved this thing. If Simpatico can put up, I put a link in our little chat. This picture of MVP. He never left. He's always been the dominant player in StarCraft 2. And you can't actually take that away. And here he is, like, the European equivalent of Codes winning that, and he dropped almost like 3-0 TLO, 3-0 Damaga, 4-1 Stefano. This guy's planning is still the best in the whole world. Better than Innovations, better than Flashes, better than anybody's. Best Terran set planner that there is.
I don't know about that. His planning, well, I mean, on the whole, yes, but his planning for this round of 8 was, I'm going to make a command center, I'm going to make a medevac while I make Hellbats. I'm going to put the Hellbats in the medevac.
That sounds like the best planning I've ever heard. That's
he went literally every game.
He mixed it up a lot.
Look at the Life Finals, man. Like the Life Finals, he did basically the same two builds, just alternated them over and over, and it was great planning. Like Life shouldn't have actually won that. That should have been MVP's 5th title, or actually it should have been his 6th, because he should have beat MMA. That was stupid, but no, I mean that is good planning. Sometimes the right plan is to use a strategy that you know is going to kill everyone, right?
Yeah.
Catz, what did you think about? What did you think?
I think that MVP does have wrists for starters.
He has wrists.
Yeah, he has wrists.
He doesn't just have fingers coming out of his arm.
Or by the arms.
And I think his planning was great. He pulled a different strategy against Stefano every game. I didn't really watch the other matches, and I think it's important to note that he did drop a couple games to Lucifron though. I was actually pretty sad that Lucifron didn't make it to play Stefano.
No, that was 4GG.
Yeah.
Lucifron versus 4GG.
No. Yeah, but
you mean
the group stages.
Yeah, the group stages he did lose some games. Like he actually almost lost to Sake too in the finals of that group in the loser bracket finals. It was 2-1, pretty close.
Sase? I think it was Sase that he lost to.
It could have been.
No, Sake.
Sake?
I don't know if he lost
Sake.
to
Well,
Sake,
he beat Sake in the loser finals of that group.
Oh, okay.
But that one was played from Korea online, wasn't it?
I thought he moved to Europe for the duration or something.
Oh, did he?
Like in the
okay. I wasn't sure about that.
He played a few matches from Korea.
Okay, it's because there were 2 group stages. That's why. The second group stage is where he lost to Lucifron. Lucifron took first in that group.
That one was live, yeah. Well, Lucifron is like, we can talk about him in a minute. I think he's the best European, but Theognis, what did you think about the tournament overall?
No, I think it was really good. I actually kind of like we were talking about. I kind of jumped ship on the MVP boat like a while ago.
Yeah.
I just kind of wrote him off, but he's kind of like Boxer. Like he can just come back at any moment and just start winning.
Yeah.
It is kind of reminiscent of that OSL run Boxer had where he lost to Uve in the finals, except with Boxer winning in this scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened to Boxer like 4 distinct times in StarCraft 1, for those of you who don't know, where everyone in the world counted him out and is like, well, he's done, and he can't win anymore. And then he's like, sup, and he's like in the top 4 of finals of an OSL, and just he's done it so many times. Then he's done it a couple times already in StarCraft 2. It's like, well, I guess he's actually done now that he's a coach. But the MVP is doing that. Like, we counted him out even towards the end of Wings of Liberty, and he still was like, oh no, here I am in the finals. Terran's bad right now, but I'm good. So you can't ever count that guy out, man. He's way too good. Let's talk about the... Huh?
Oh, no, but I was just saying, like, WCS EU, that was, like, amazing event. I thought it was really good. They added a lot of...
was fantastic.
Yeah, they added a lot of the side kind of content with, like, the player interviews and all that stuff, and that was really nice, just, like, time fillers.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it was just... I really kind of liked the small atmosphere that it had as well. It was kind of like a cross between, like, home story and, like, some big tournament.
Yeah,
so
it was pretty nice.
Yeah. No.
To me, the home story. The home story I feel actually doesn't. I don't know. Is that really what you want for the European Championships? You want like 20 guys sitting there with White Rod at a bar? I mean, it's a lot of fun for home story talk, but it's the European Championships. It feels like it should have more gravitas to me.
That's a good point.
Yeah, sure.
I guess it's what you compare it to. I love MLG, but I think that the European tournament was much better done in terms of production. And I don't know. I don't mind. Like, at least they have somewhat of an audience, and the side content is pretty important to keep people, like looking forward to the next game and just not bored. Well, I don't know. And the production was great. Aside from those little things. So I don't know. I liked it.
They definitely put on a good show. Sorry, go ahead.
Here's a question about it, because I noticed the same thing, that it was like not as epic as maybe it should have been, but do you try to make it that epic, and then the next week people watch GSL finals again and are reminded that people can't pull off finals like that very easily? Like, could it have lived up to it? And what do you actually book that for? Because, like, how many of the matches do you play in that stadium or whatever? Because, they've been doing it in the studio for a while, so it is kind of hard. Whereas with GSL finals or something, right? Like, our round of 4 is just in the studio. There's nothing that special about it. And then the finals, just one match we have at a big studio or a big center.
I don't know. No one shits on DreamHack for not being the GSL. Everyone, there's 1,000 appreciation threads on Reddit every single time they host an event about how great their show is. And I feel like a DreamHack, or even just a regular ESL IEM event or an MLG or whatever, I feel that has much more of a tournament, of an continental finals feel to it than the studio with the studio audience. Sure. So, like, what point you do it? Do you do top 8? Do you do top 4? What I feel that's kind of a moot point, but I think you can definitely do it, and I think it would feel better.
Yeah, okay. but I mean, budget goes into that too. It's the first time around. It's probably a test run for everyone.
That's true.
And all the pieces are probably not in place. To just randomly throw a huge tournament where there's only going to be a few players, because otherwise the format in itself, it wouldn't allow for that. You want players to prepare for a certain group. You want a group casted in its entirety, as opposed to a dream. You have multiple streams and multiple groups or any other big tournament.
But they already pulled the top 8 in for the weekend. Like, it was already kind of a weekend tournament. They just did it from the studio.
Yeah.
They did their top 8 over 2 days.
Yeah, I just say it's budget at that point.
Well, and then we get to the point where this is Blizzard's World Championships. It should have all the budget in the world, and it should be as epic and awesome and amazing as an LCS or at least a DreamHack.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't think it comes down to the organizers. I think it comes back to Blizzard. So, it's not up to ESL to make it huge, because they can't promote their sponsors. They can't sell anything. It has to be Blizzard that goes.
I'm not saying we necessarily blame ESL. I think you're probably right. It does come back to how much money Blizzard wants to invest in it. I think that money should be invested.
Do you know if it was more or less than last year? Because I know last year was pretty epic for the WCS Europe Finals.
That was...
I think the combined stream views were similar to what was the single stream last year, but of course last year it was in that huge stadium and had, like, that was probably the best produced StarCraft 2 event, you know, maybe ever. So I don't know that you can really compare them because it was the much smaller studio feel. It was more of a Home Story Cup type of feel than last year's WCS. So, all right, so I guess that we're done talking about that aspect. What about the actual tournament games themselves here? You know, we only had one Protoss in that round of 8. Kind of got slammed by Stefano. By the way, miraculous hold. Oh my god, that one game. Did you guys see that game on Belshire where Stefano just blindly countered Gateway Expand?
I still don't know how that... Wait, which hold do you mean? Do you mean the hold when Baby Knight was attacking, or Baby Knight's hold of the pool?
Baby Knight's hold of the pool. Like, that was insane, man. I would have died to that every time. Like, that was a hard hold right there. When he let the Nexus finish, I'm like, oh, you have balls. All right. What are you going to do here? 6-6 hold. What'd you guys like for the games?
It was actually more than a hold. He ended up way ahead after it, too.
Yeah.
Stefano actually kind of overcommitted the Lings, but no, that was really impressive. The stranger thing to me was the fact that that Stefano managed to survive that pre-ultra timing. Like, I still don't know how that happened. Like, Stefano's Infestors do as much damage as Wings of Liberty Infestors or something. I don't know.
They were good fungals.
He got caught by the initial fungal, and he shouldn't have. But still, I'm really surprised.
I was only half paying attention because I was like, okay, this game's over. You know?
He was up a lot of supply and up upgrades, and no ultras were out, and there was only like 3 or 4 spines. I don't know. It was a pretty poor attack, but I still don't know how Stefano held it.
Yeah, it was very impressive as a hold. What'd you guys like for the games overall?
Yeah, there was a lot of games that I liked. I really liked the Lucifron 4GG games. It went to like the 5th match. There was a lot of mind games there. Like, I felt really bad for Lucifron because he's like I said, I would put him like one of the probably top 2 Europeans. I probably wouldn't put him top, but I would say he's up there, and I just kind of felt bad for him. 4GG's TVT is like absolutely scary, so that was kind of unfortunate. I think he might have been able to get to the finals if he got past 4GG for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, yeah, I like the MVP games. It was pretty fun. I really like how he was pulling out like all of the Wings of Liberty builds in the finals against Stefano. That was.
Yeah, I would have liked Lucifron against Stefano in the semifinals.
That would have been pretty
Lucifron could have definitely beat 4GG. I liked the Maga games. He doesn't really play a style that I play too much. Like, he's super hyper aggressive, but I don't know. I'm just happy that he made it to a round of 4, and he's such a cool guy that I don't know. I enjoyed watching him and winning.
Yeah. I actually feel like Lucifron might be the best European. I felt like that for a while. Like, if I had to bet my life on a European beating a top Korean in a tournament setting, and I know that obviously Stefano does that quite often, but I would put my life on Lucifron. I feel like he is just about to do like what Stefano's been doing for a long time. Just as Stefano's going out, like Lucifron's picking up, maybe not to the same degree because the game was less figured out back then, but I feel like he's going to be like the foreigner that we're like, all right, it's going to be a Korean or Lucifron here, you know? Does anyone agree with me? Am I crazy?
No, even MC said that he thought Lucifron was probably the top European. So.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah, he actually said that in one of the interviews.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I would agree that he would do that well. I think he'll definitely be maybe like one of the top foreigners maybe in the next year or so, but I don't think he's going to be like a winning tournaments like back to back like Stefano did.
Oh, I don't think anyone will ever do that again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like the go-to foreigner, you know, like Stefano has been.
To me, it just feels like every time he enters a tournament or becomes active between school or whatever, he's just so hyped, and he never really seems to deliver. He has some very impressive games, and then just between it, he seems to fall apart. And that's the most important thing for a tournament player. Like, Stefano was always on, and even when he was off, he won anyway. And that's that's how you win tournaments, and I don't see that at all in Lucifron. He's really creative and tricky and good at build orders, and he has the mechanics to back it up and be a legitimate player behind it, which is always just like a deadly combination. But I don't see him being anywhere near what Stefano was.
Well,
or
he wasn't
a major tournament winner.
He wasn't full-time before. He just finished school how long ago? Like a few months, right? So
Oh,
he's
full-time
just
now?
starting that.
Yeah, he is. I don't know. I was kind of like thinking something along the lines of what Idra just mentioned. Like he's always super good and super hyped, and his games are always impressive, and you know he can go toe to toe with anyone. But then you know like he lost to TLO, and props to TLO for that. He beat Happy too, by the way, TLO. He lost 3-1 in the placement matches after that Lucifron did. So I don't know if it's stamina or if it's just maybe he needs a breakout performance to give him that confidence that he can make it, or I don't know what it is, but he's lacking that element. And
It seems strange that it would be a confidence thing because he was like a multi-tournament winner in Warcraft. Like he's been doing this for a long time. He's been around.
Yeah,
I think he just needs a few more months. I feel like he's basically there, and there's just like these little tiny things he's fixing right now that are going to make like all the difference in the world. Like, you know, TLO even said after he played Lucifron, congrats TLO by the way, getting 5th place. That was pretty sick. But he even said he's like, well, I think Lucifron's probably the best, and he beat me straight up, so I had to throw a bunch of random stuff at him and do my best. And it's stuff like that I think that's taking Lucifron out more often than not, where it's like, okay, you just got to get a little tiny bit better at reading what people are doing to you, and you're just going to crush everything, you know?
Yeah, maybe that's the case.
Maybe.
We'll see.
I don't know. I think it's gotten to the point where just people have been so high up on him so many times, and he's failed to. It feels like a risky bet to bet on him anymore.
All right. Well, I guess I'm more dangerous with my esports dollars because
you are a Protoss player, so.
That's true. I base it on I base it on my strategies with the players. If I keep betting on Lucifron, he has to win eventually, right? It's like a coin flip.
He's your
yeah, I agree. I think Lucifron is probably the best European.
Sick. That's kind of out of nowhere. Thank you, Catz. Let's talk about MVP's Hellbat Marauder build. What do you guys think about that? My Terrans and Zergs, or my Terran and Zergs.
Yeah, it's a pretty good build. It's really good kind of against like the current metagame, which is just like speedling and then take a third into like dual evo.
I mean, the only thing that we can do apart from a roach
Yeah, I mean, it's not even anything new. Like people were doing that Hellbat drop build, but it was just kind of like that Marauder sim timing follow up because you can just kill the third because they're not going to be able to get like roaches out in time, like to kind of react to that. So yeah, I was doing it a couple times on ladder and. People are always just like GG MVP. Like after I said that, they're kind of bitter. But yeah, it's pretty good. I'm not exactly sure what you should do against like roaches. Like if they open roaches or something, I think you just sit back. But yeah, it's a really strong timing kind of against the current metagame.
It's kind of like Terran's version of the like 4-gate +1 pressure. It's like you can hold it off if you play perfectly, but it's so hard to actually balance unit production and drone production and stay alive and end up ahead. Except it's even more exaggerated because those roaches, like you can't counterattack against marauders and bunkers with roaches. So if you actually go roaches to totally shut it down, then they're almost a wasted investment unless you can turn it into like a roach hydra all in or something, or a roach bane all in. But if you go lings, then good luck holding a Hellbat based timing rush after. Like you can hold the initial drops with lings and queens, but then when 6 Hellbats plus the medevacs and bio backup come in, the lings are worthless. So it's a really tough situation to defend and come out ahead. It's not hard to defend, but because they have a 3rd TC and 2 E-base coming up behind it as well. So like you have to defend efficiently. And against Hellbats and Marauders with Zerg early game units, with medevacs, defending efficiently is pretty iffy.
Yeah, I think that's probably the strength of it is because like a lot of the timing attacks, like Terran vs. Zerg, like if you watch 4GG, like he'll delay upgrades so incredibly long, delay his 3rd command center. Whereas this one, like he's basically just making Marauders off of like 1 barracks. And he's still getting a quick 3rd TC with like relatively like even upgrades. So it's not like it's a super huge commitment. It's just kind of like, hey, if they're just going lings, then I'll send my army out. If they're not, then I'll just kind of sit back. So it's not really that big of an investment.
Yeah.
It's not like
I
you're
think
setting out
that's
upgrades
the
or anything.
thing. It's not that big of an investment. It can't kill you. It can't do a bunch of damage, and if it doesn't do shit, then you're still in a good spot, or not in the, not necessarily in a losing spot. And it usually does some sort of damage. I think that Hellbats are anything with Hellbats on it are good, but it might be one of those situations where we need to get perfect at defending it and then playing a game from there. It's one of the lives that Turing has, I guess.
Have you guys been hitting it more on the ladder since that finals?
I don't feel like I've actually seen it too much more.
I haven't seen the Marauder follow up too much, but Hellbat drops are pretty common.
Yeah. Hellbat drops were always common, and I feel the Marauder. I feel like the Marauder follow up was the slightly unique and good part of the build. I don't think that Hellbat drops themselves, if they catch you off guard, they can be game ending, but them by themselves are not too bad. But the Marauder follow-up I felt was very smart and very scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was watching a few streams, like I was watching Red, and I saw like him hitting it like every single game, like the day of the game. So
that
I'm
little
not sure if
I
it's
love
kind of falling off. But...
that little I love MKP guy does it like every game, but he did something similar to it even before MVP did it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't think of any other NA Terrans who I've seen do it very much.
Well, if there's Hellbats involved, what about Drunken Boy?
He still just does the Hellbat drop into, I don't know, whatever failure he's going to do next.
I guess I'll start going on NA.
What did you guys think of the mech strategies pulled out by MVP? Because he had some pretty cool stuff with that.
I'm not sure if I actually saw those games.
I saw I saw the Helling Banshee one, but I didn't see the other one, I don't think.
Well, that was a blast from the past right there. I kind of liked that. That was like a really smart time to bring back a Wings of Liberty build. I like that. What did you think, Theognis? Or Idra? Go ahead. Anybody.
Go ahead.
I saw that, but it felt like the Hellion Banshee just kind of caught Stefan off guard. He was because he was getting Hellbat maraudered so hard in the previous games. I feel like he was kind of leaning towards blind countering it, and so then Hellion Banshee comes out, and that's what Banshee really is now. It's not particularly good. It's much worse than the other options, but if it's a surprise, it's a dangerous surprise, and it happened to work there. And then from there, anything would have worked. So the fact that he went back afterwards is kind of meh.
Well, that game was a bit brutal.
Yeah, I didn't see.
Yeah, it just kind of ran into like a Roach Knightis, and that's pretty strong against that. Just getting the quick siege.
Oh, that's right.
Out,
That's what that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a 3-base, but no drones at the third.
Yeah.
Actually, I do remember the one on Akalon that he did like the Hellbats into the mech. I thought that was a pretty good game. I think Stefano did make a few mistakes. Like he attacked through like the choke on Akalon, like to the fourth, and just kind of sacked his army right as he was teching up the Vipers. I think maybe if he held off that and then got the Vipers out, then he probably could have fended that off. But it was still a pretty close game afterwards.
Yeah, in the Heart of the Storm beta, a lot of turns were going mech because it was like, oh, we got all these new toys. They seem like we should be using them for mech. And I found then they stopped, because I think that Zerg is better against mech than it was in Wings of Liberty. Stormhosts are good, Vipers are great, and I just think it might cycle through the meta, but I don't think it's gonna become more popular than Bio ever. I think that mech is a cool little tool there, and if unscouted, it can be super powerful, because there's this little timings, and if you're going mass links and you run into Hellbat anything, you just die. So I don't think it's gonna stick around though. I don't think it's ever gonna become the meta. I think mech is worse than a Wings of Liberty.
Yeah, I think Biomine is just flat out better, and if it's any kind of big map, if there's not a split map possibility, then I think Roach Hydra Viper is almost a hard counter to it. So yeah, it's fun to mix in on certain maps like Daybreak and Akalon, but I really just think Biomine is better.
Yeah, a lot of the times it goes back to what Greg mentioned before. Like they go mech after doing damage with Hellbat drops and something like that, and really like no matter what they would have done, they would have won anyways. So sometimes it's kind of irrelevant where they go.
I feel like it's probably a better way for him to let him rest his wrists a little bit too, because it's just not as intense on that. I've always felt like he mixes that. He's gotten like more mech since his wrist.
He has
flat out said
wrists.
that he does it.
He said that?
Yeah, he said that he plays mechs because it's less mechanically intensive.
No shit. Ooh,
I'm sure I
that
saw an
feels
interview of
smart.
him saying that. Yeah.
All right, sick.
Yeah, I didn't hear about that. Have you guys seen the TLO build, like the Muta and the Stormhost against mech?
Yeah, I
It
saw
was
that.
Are you
like
talking about like
so
the
strong.
Stormhost drops? Like,
Yeah, but like the thing is, like he doesn't even need to do the drops. That's just kind of like icing on the cake. He could just basically the Mutas just keep the mech player in their base, and then he just goes drones plus Stormhost, and he basically just contains them the entire game until he gets like 14
I did
minutes
see
to the
it.
boards.
I
Yeah,
did see those.
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
that just
It's
makes me
really
never want to go mech after seeing that. It's like
he was
I
doing that
don't know
against
what
like
you do.
Strelok. He tore him apart with that thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw that game. That was quite impressive.
That
I
kind of
haven't seen it, but it sounds really good.
Yeah, he just skips upgrades. He just doesn't get upgrades and he just rushes up the Brood Lords and like Stormhouse and stuff. It's really strong.
that actually kind of reminds me how I play against mech in PvT, where like if I see mech, I go Robo Twilight and Stargate because I can't possibly counter Void Rays and Blink Stalkers and a bunch of Immortals. You know, like
Yeah.
I don't know. I like it. Do you guys use anything like that against mech, or do you just play, go into the Viper style or Stormhost only style?
If
I go
play against
Stormhost into Vipers usually, and
it,
then
if
I
even
make
play,
some bursts.
oh sorry. If
No,
I
go
even
ahead.
play against it, I go Roach Hydra Viper, almost
Yeah.
always. But I almost never see it.
Yeah. I really like the TLO thing because that kind of reminds me of like how Savior kind of used to play. It was like 3-hatch Muta and just go like Lurker plus drone. And then you just like drone up like 4 bases and then just like tech to whatever. It's just really solid.
If you can set up a contain with Stormhosts of any kind, it's pretty much game over. Whenever they move out, they will lose stuff whenever they unsiege. And then Vipers, like you can slowly pick apart their army with Vipers, like either if it's Abduct or Blinding Cloud, like if they have too many tanks, which is what you get when they have too many Stormhosts. Then blinding Cloud a bunch, and then the Stormhosts are pushing in. So, and then you can take the entire map. If you can set up a contain, that's what I'm saying. Like the Muta style seems like a really smart opener. Go ahead.
So many people open up with tanks and just tank Hellbat now because sometimes that'll give you a powerful timing, and all of the circus goes so ground heavy against mech. So actually opening up with 2-base Muta, a lot of the times that'll catch them really off guard, and you can get a ton of map control out of it.
Well, that's certainly meta.
That's so meta.
Definitely. So let's jump over and ask this kind of broad-based, loaded question. We talked a lot when WCS was announced. Everyone talked a lot about what's going to happen. Are these tournaments actually going to be really good? Are Koreans going to just run everywhere and steal everything and win all the money and ruin things or whatever, or make them better? Everyone had different opinions, especially Catz. And here's the question. Was the first season of WCS Europe a success?
I think Europe was never at risk because of the amount of Koreans that were there. I think it would have failed completely if there was 4 Koreans out of the 5 in the top 4, but there was only 2. So I think it was pretty cool, but if a European would have won, I think it would have been much better. Just for the sentiment and for the it's WCS Europe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think since there wasn't a great number of Koreans to begin with in Europe, it was never doomed to fail.
And you got probably, if you could have a Korean win, you would either want MVP or MC. I think that's the most entertaining option. So I think that is a bit of a savior. Like a Korean won, but it was still one that has a big fan base and is interesting and loved and all that.
Yeah.
So I think EU is totally fine, but like Catz said, there was never the massive influx of Koreans in EU that people are worried about and that we're seeing materialize in NA. So
okay.
I think the NA finals weekend is going to be much more telling and much more interesting when it comes to that kind of thing.
Theognis?
Yeah, yeah. Like I don't think EU is ever gonna get like insanely influx with Koreans like NA will, just because it's probably just too expensive just to like fly the Koreans all the way out there.
Yeah, and our money is not worth anything in Europe. Nothing. It's so bad. Like,
I've heard more than once that the ping from Korea to EU is pretty much unplayable. So
completely unplayable.
I was actually surprised that MVP even got through the first group stage playing through.
Yeah, I thought he might actually get eliminated because it's the worst thing. Guys, don't ever try it. Oh my god.
Yeah, overall, I think it was a success. I think there was a really good mix of just like Koreans and foreigners overall. Yeah, just basically like all the Koreans that can come over to EU like you said, they all have really good like personalities, fan bases, like storylines. So I think that would, overall helped like the viewership, just like the few Koreans that were sprinkled in.
Yeah.
Not too sure about like NA, like how the viewership is and stuff, but I think it's definitely lower than the EU.
Yeah, I think that you are right. It is a bit lower than the EU, but it's still got really good viewership as well. And speaking of which, let's actually talk about that a little bit while we're on this subject. I'll post.
It was much lower, I think.
The brackets.
It's like
well, we
usually around 40K.
We have the brackets were like around 40ish, right? Whereas in EU it was like hitting 60, I think, during the brackets, and then during the actual finals thing, it was like up at 100, I believe. And the thing is, we haven't had the actual finals thing for the NA one yet, so yeah, we'll see. But I mean, 40K is pretty legit.
Having a few Koreans sprinkled in is pretty cool because it legitimizes the tournament a little bit. Like if someone beats MVP or someone beats for GG, it's like cool. And there's very little risk of all 4 or 5 of them making it to the top 4 or 5 because it's still a pretty good field of players. Yeah. But then you have the other side of the coin, which is like the other side of the coin with just NA and every I don't know how many Koreans played in it. Probably like 30, maybe. Probably
it's madness. Let's go ahead and talk about that right now. I just pasted for you guys the actual brackets for the top 8. Hero versus Alicia, Moonglade against Ryung, Crank versus Alive, Revival against Snoot. First off, let's go ahead and state the obvious. 6 Koreans, a European, and an Australian. No North Americans in here whatsoever. Some of these players have good fan bases, though. Like, for instance, Hero is super loved, and then the other one's not quite as much. Snoot's gaining a good fan base. Moonglade, obviously, everyone loves him, and he's, this is the tournament he's supposed to be playing in anyways.
Oh, absolutely.
What do you guys think about this bracket? Because I think we all agree that WCS EU has basically done what it was supposed to, and it's done a great job of that. What about this one so far?
I mean, it's to be predicted. North Americans just aren't as good, and the ones who are very good, like Scarlet, she's having wrist problems and stuff. She couldn't even play up to her potential, so she unfortunately went out relatively early. I don't know what other good North Americans. Juan, I don't know where he went in it. I'm not sure why he didn't make it.
He lost. He died early too.
Hero and
Hero and Alive, he lost to.
Hero and Alive, yeah.
So he's up there and he didn't make it through. So most of the North Americans who had potential lost due to circumstances or just lost Koreans early on or whatever. So I don't think anyone can be surprised by this, but I mean, it's obviously not good for the North American scene. Like, there's no North Americans to benefit from it. And as for the tournament success, I think they really need to hope that probably ideally Moonglade, but also maybe Hero has to have a really good, entertaining run. Otherwise, I think viewership-wise, it's going to be a pretty big failure. Yeah, I guess so.
If Moonglade can pull himself to the finals, I think that's like...
If Moonglade makes it through, I think that's what MLGS be praying for right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
You guys don't think about Snoot?
Yeah,
I don't think he has a realistic chance to do it. So that's.
I think he can be a Revival. Absolutely.
I think he can.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Snoot played very well at CBC so far.
And I think he can breed. I think that Crank and Alive are beatable too. I think Snoot's bracket is not too hard. I think Ryung and Hero and perhaps even Alicia are stronger than everyone in the bottom side of the bracket. So I don't know. I personally am looking forward to Moonglade and Snoot, and I don't know, in all honesty, if I'll be watching the other matches, because it's not like GSL finals level play. It's plus there's Zergs, it's like not anyone that I know personally or I want them to win or do well. Like there's no sentiment attached to any of those players aside from Moonglade and Snoot.
Yeah.
I have to agree with that somewhat. If you look at the Korean lineup, it's not the most exciting. Like, I actually really like every single player in there. I'm not actually a Revival fan, but the other Koreans, I really like them all. But Hero is like a multi-time DreamHack champion, so that's good, and he has a big fan base. And then other than that, it's like, well, yeah, I guess Alive won a single tournament, but no one gives him credit for that, and no one thinks of it ever. And it's just like not the most exciting batch of Koreans for me. Like it's not, even though I really like them and I'll actually end up watching every single match, it's not like watching MVP or MC or Nesty or something.
Yeah.
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 There's not that many like apparent storylines like there were in EU, like with MVP wrist thing, like everyone knew about that. All of those storylines, like you don't really know. Like off the top of my head, I don't know really all the storylines from like Hero, Alicia, like Crank Alive. So that might definitely affect it. So
the problem is most of them don't really have storylines. There's like generic good players, like very, very good. Like Dan said, Alive's a tournament winner. Crank's quite good. Alicia had that run where he was like second at everything. And people just don't remember. They're just good, but they're not interesting. And interesting is what drives the viewership.
Alicia actually won the IPL qualifier, I believe, of every single Korean that competed in it. That's like everyone that every top.
Oh, he made like 3 second places right in a row as well, like MLG, NASL, and
MLG Arena, I think.
Oh yeah, another MLG. Thing. Like he actually,
unfortunately, no one cared too, which is kind of.
I know it's a sad. This is actually the reality of what this sport is, but.
Hero is pretty emotional, I guess, so that might, and he's from Team Liquid as well. So I think Hero might be the one that could drive some viewership. And if anything, Ryung, I guess he typed Imba once.
Yeah.
Once.
That kind of makes him a little bit controversial. I guess.
He draws those pictures of MMA. Yeah.
Yeah. That. Like as far as like I don't know very much at all about Crank. I don't know very much at all about Alicia. I don't know very much at all about Revival. Alive is a friend. Like I like him. He's cool, but he's so quiet and like he barely talks. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
what we need. MLG needs to hire Total Biscuit or pay Total Biscuit to just do like millions and millions of interviews with Ryung because he's actually good enough to win it and he's funny as shit, but no one knows. Like he's the kind of funny where even though he doesn't really speak English, you can just talk to him and tell that he's really, really funny.
He's kind of like a goofy type of kid.
If he could get that out there, he would actually have a Western fan base. He might be the best shot.
WCS EU did a really good job at that, at interviews and stuff like that, and promoting those. And even like the giant posters with the players and all that stuff, that was pretty cool. I hope.
Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, MLG better do that. I think that would definitely help them a lot.
Yeah, I really.
Well, all 8 of these players actually need to be stars, and I think that at WCS EU that was a lot of them already had big fan bases, so I guess it was a lot easier. But they definitely worked hard to try to make sure that was the case, and I think it's probably doable. What do you guys think about who's actually going to advance to the round of 4? Because I actually look at this bracket, and I'm almost kind of happy Moonglade has Ryung. His CVT has been pretty on point lately, and
those games against STC were pretty impressive. But I'd say Ryung is next level from STC. I feel like STC is very much so like transplanted Korean syndrome. Like as soon as he left Korea, he started getting worse. And even if he's back now, it still happened. That disparity is there. So we're just going to go through and do predictions?
Yeah.
I think...
Top 4 and then the winner of the whole thing.
I don't know about PvP. I'd say I'll just give it to Alicia because I like him. And I think Moonglade versus Ryung is 3-2 for Ryung. But I don't know about that. And then Alive versus Crank. I think Alive wins. Alive is, like you said, just always super good and always under the radar. I think Alive wins that. Then I think Revival wins. And then I think of that, the Alicia Ryung winner wins it all. Which I would say is probably Ryung, if you have to give an answer.
It's pretty fair.
I really like Ryung. I hope he wins. He's my personal favorite.
It's a good kid.
Catz. I think the Hero is going to beat Alicia, but I think that's the closest match. I think that could be the finals. But I don't know. Hero has been doing really well in PvP in Pro League. Moonglade against Ryung, I can't really bet against Moonglade. I'll say he wins. And he's been preparing a lot, and I know that. And like you said, his CVT is really strong. But Ryung's TVZ is amazing. He's, like Greg said, a level above the opponents that Moonglade has had to face. So it'll be tough, but I'll be rooting for Moonglade. Alive should beat Crank, but yeah, I'm not sure about that. And then Snoot, I think, will be Revival. And then probably Hero will end up winning the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna go for the foreigners, just Moonglade and Snoop, no bias there. For the hero Alicia, I actually didn't watch any of Alicia's games, but I've heard he's on fire recently. But I'm not too sure.
Lots of Void Race.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he's very
Lots
good at
of
making
Void
Void
Rays.
Rays. He gets +1 for him. It's the sickest
Oh.
thing.
Are Void Rays still good in PvP or no?
No, not really. Well, they
Alright.
have their points. They have their places, but
All right, then I'll probably just go with hero then. Alive versus Crank. I'm not too sure about that. Alive's like really good late game. Like his late game army control is like so damn good, but like sometimes he's really shaky in that matchup. But yeah, I'll probably go with Alive, maybe 3-2 on that one, and then yeah, Snoot and Moonglade. I think we'll just go through.
sick. Who wins?
Probably Hero or Young. No. I'm gonna say Moonglade. Screw it. I'm going that one.
Moonglade takes the whole thing.
Yeah,
Wow,
he's doing that shit.
badass.
He's doing that shit.
Awesome.
All right. I have to take Alicia taking out Hero. I never really cared for Hero's PvP as much, even if he's doing that well with it. Alicia's just playing really well recently, and there's a lot of games that you can study from Hero, I would say. I'm actually going to take Moonglade over Ryung. I don't know why, I just have this feeling this kid doesn't really crack under pressure, so I could see him taking it. Crank, I'm going to take over Alive. I think you guys are crazy. Crank's PvT is really good. And then Snoot over Revival, and I think Crank is going to take the whole tournament.
What?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Hey,
Crank's
I'm
good,
done.
but-
I said it. That's
That
it.
is-
Protoss.
The bold
It's over.
Total Biscuit must be really happy with you right now.
We're
There's
upset.
He is supposed to be
players
happy
that
in general.
Yeah,
They're
there's
saying
3
Young
active
and Crank.
top 8.
Yeah. But no, I think Crank is pretty sick. He's like really solid. He has good builds, and yeah, I'm choosing Crank to take this tournament. Sounds crazy, but screw you guys. Isn't Crank the guy that actually invented the Void Ray +1 Zealot build way back
He was
when you
like
lived with
one of the-
Slayers?
Yeah, he was. The Slayers guys all said he invented it, but that could have
Yeah.
just been because he was on Slayers and it popped up around that time. But he was definitely a big proponent of it and one of the earlier users.
That was a good build, man. I remember
That was a fucked up build. I hated that shit.
All right. So I think we talked that little tournament to death, and we've been on for like 2 hours, so we might just skip everything else. I think it's been a pretty reasonable set of discussion today, guys. Good work to everybody. Anything else you guys want to bring up before we go?
Can't think of anything.
I don't think so.
No? All right. Well, I guess it's shout-out time then. Theognis, your shout-outs.
Oh god, fuck. Yeah, thanks to my personal sponsor, Widezoom, widezoom.com. It's they sell cameras and camera accessories. It's pretty cool. You should check it out. Other than that, thank the root sponsors: DOS Keyboard, Twitch, AverMedia, and MyGamer.info.
Sick. Catz?
Yeah, same sponsors. Thank you very much for that keyword. To that keyword, we'll be renewing with them really soon, like I said before.
Awesome.
We actually have the contract already ready to sign, so we'll be doing that soon. And yeah, thank you, AverMedia, MyGamer.info as well, and Twitch TV, who have been supporting us for a long while now. Visit root-gaming.com, follow me on Twitter @rootcats, and thank you guys for having me.
And Idra.
Follow me on Twitter @Idrajit, IDRAJIT, and then my Twitch stream, same name, twitch.tv/Idrajit. Been streaming pretty much every day. I didn't today, but pretty frequently still. So just catch me there. I think that's it. Thank you all for watching.
Sick. And for me, big shout out to Simpatico. His Twitter is Simpatico TV. He does all the production and all the funny stuff that you see all comes completely out of his brain, and he puts a lot of work into it. He sits behind the scenes and directs the show. He does like every graphic, every little thing. He's a total badass. And of course, his friend Matt Eliantes, or however I say that, that made all this sick music that we use. So big shout outs to them guys. And of course, my sponsors, TT Sports and iBuyPower. Got my sick new iBuyPower computer right there, and all my sick TT stuff. And I'm able to stream a lot because of them, and I will be streaming a lot. So make sure you check out all that. So thanks to you guys for coming on. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll be back next week as well. So see you later.